Okay, now we're going to put the binding around the outside edges of the guitar. I'm just going to use get some strips of tape and cover up the holes that expose the inside of the guitar, basically. As we carve and chip away pieces of the wood, I really don't want them falling inside the body of the guitar. I want to minimize that as much as I can. The F holes and that bottom pickup, the bridge pickup, are the main thing, but I'm also going to go ahead and cover up the holes for the controls as well. Okay, I've kind of clamped the neck back into position here. And I'm just making sure that we've got this joint between the neck and the body good. I'm just going to kind of sand that flush, because when we cut the groove for the binding, it goes and stops at the neck. I just want to make sure all that's right before we cut that groove. I'm sanding it here with probably some 60 grit, and then you might even work it down to like a 120. Also cover up the hole for the output jack as well. Okay, now I'm going to take some 100 grit paper and I'm going to just sand the sides so that everything's nice and uniform before we cut that groove. If things are a little uneven here, you may sort of misgauge the thickness that this groove needs to be, and when you shave your binding, it might be thinner in spots and thicker in others. So let's just get everything as uniform as we can now, and that'll help the appearance of the binding later. And now I'm switching to 150 once you've gone around your body with the 100 grit, and just doing the same thing. Just getting everything nice and smooth. And the real key here is just to make sure that everything's nice and square. And then we're going to switch to 180 grit. And go around the sides one last time. Okay, once that's done, I'm taking a little piece of the binding here and putting it alongside here so I'll know kind of how thick or how deep to make this groove. You want it to overhang the side just slightly so that we can scrape it flush later. And I'm just going to take a small chisel and just start carving off the top here. Remember, the binding's not very thick, so you're not going very deep here at all. And you want to stop it, just run the chisel along the top edge of the side. You can see here where I've stopped at the side. And just slowly sort of work your way around. Making sure the curve stays really nice and uniform. Again, you don't want it thick in spots and thin in others. And from time to time, just test fit that little piece of binding and make sure that everything's good. And now here you can see a little close up how it's going to overhang that side just enough that will scrape it flush later. And now some areas, especially here around the bottom and when you're going across the grain of the top, you may want to take a hammer and chisel and just fine tune that a little. It's a little easier than just trying to do it by hand. And now once you've gone all the way around, top and bottom, I'm going to put the long piece of binding in place and trace it out. If you did a really good job measuring your tops and got your 1/4 of an inch along the edge, you may find areas like this where there's not really much room. But draw that pencil line around and then go and fine-tune the top and the back to where you've got a nice uniform thickness in the top all the way around. Basically work it down to where that pencil line is. And just like we did on the side, the top is going to be slightly thinner than the height of the binding. The binding should stand up over the top when it's installed. And then we'll scrape it flush later. Okay, and work your way all the way around with the chisel. And then once you've done that, you want to take some 60 grit paper, and we'll just start sanding those chisel marks out. And now once you've gone with the sandpaper, we're going to take a tack cloth, which is available in pretty much any paint supply place should have it, wherever they do stains and varnishes. It's basically a piece of cheesecloth that's got like a sticky resin on it. I'm just going to unfold it all out here. And you kind of use it like you would a cloth, but the resin picks up any dust, any sawdust, debris that's on there. Gives you a real nice clean surface to work with. And now I'm going to take some acetone. And again, be careful. Some of these chemicals that we use are pretty dangerous. Follow the directions on the label. And I'm actually just sort of wiping everything down now. I just want to keep this as clean and dust-free as I can at this point. Now I'm taking a sanding sealer. This is basically a shellac, but this will penetrate in and just seal up the wood. Just using a 1-inch disposable brush and just putting a real thin coat of the sanding sealer on. And I'm going to do this over the entire guitar, the front, the back, and the sides. You don't really have to sanding seal the groove where the binding's going to go. That can just be left sort of raw wood. And then allow it to dry for an hour before you flip it over and do the top. The shellac does dry fairly quickly, but just make sure it doesn't stick to anything. Then after you've done the top, allow it to dry, and I'm going to start cutting just some pieces of tape to tape down the binding as we put it on. These are about 2 or 3 inches long, probably 6 to 7 centimeters. And you'll need several of these. Basically, as the binding goes around the guitar, we'll be taping it down the whole entire length. Okay, now I'm taking just a small glass bowl, and I want to take the acetone again, and I want to take some scrap pieces of binding. And another disposable brush, and I'm going to cut some pieces into the bowl. I'll probably cut 3 or 4 inches worth of some extra binding material, which is probably about 8 to 10 centimeters. And the idea here is we're going to take some of the scrap binding and mix it with the acetone to where it dissolves. These plastic bindings will be dissolved by acetone. And this will make us a paste that we can use as our glue for the binding. And just the small little pieces, the smaller the better. And you just sort of have to gauge for yourself how much acetone to combine. Mix it around. If you find that it's not dissolving very well, add a little more acetone. You don't want it too thick, and it will take a little while for the binding to dissolve. You can see I'm just going to continually add acetone until I've got a nice little paste. And there are other types of glues you can use. I just kind of prefer this method. Okay, I'm going to take the binding and sort of bend it into these sharper corners just to kind of get it into that shape before we start to tape it down. Around the bottom edges, it's not such a severe turn, and it'll go on very easily. But in these top sharp corners, it can want to flex out of it. Like you can see, I just take a little of the paste and start applying it in there, kind of right into the groove and on the back side of that binding, and push it into place. And then I'll take a piece of tape and just tape it right over. And since you are dealing with acetone, I highly recommend that you wear some plastic gloves here. My hands, most of the plastic gloves I get don't actually fit into the gloves. I typically tear them, so I sometimes just do this without. But just be on the safe side and protect your skin there. And if a little comes loose, just sort of peel it back and reapply some paste and get it on there as tight as you can. And I find it's easier to start up at the neck. Binding's available in long enough pieces that you can typically go all the way around the guitar with one solid piece. And just keep repeating this process. Do just a few inches at a time. Make sure that it stays flush with the wood, that it doesn't separate. You don't want any cracks between the binding and the wood. And that's another thing nice about the paste that we make. If there is a little irregularity there, the paste can bond with the binding. It actually is the binding, so it sort of fills in those spots as well. Now along these wider curves, you can space your tape out a little farther apart and can even do a little bit longer stretches at a time. And it can be kind of a messy process with the paste. Sometimes something like crazy glue, super glue, those kinds of things, epoxies, they can be a little cleaner to use. I've just kind of always liked the way the actual binding paste holds a little better. Okay, and there you can see once it's on there and you've gone all the way around and it's dried for an hour or so, I typically take the tape off. The binding will hold, and then I'll just put a long, nice piece like this around just to seal it up so it can stay a little longer term. And this way I also get a look at everything to see if there's any spots that I might need to take off and redo before it's actually dried. So once you're happy with it, just go ahead and seal that up and we'll let it dry. Then go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Same process applies. The only difference here, and I did the back first and now I'm doing the front, where the neck joins the body, you want that binding to go into that sort of empty void there. There's an area right here at the top of the neck where there really isn't any wood that the binding sits next to. It just sort of sits on top of where you cut out for the neck. Okay, once it's dry, I've allowed it to dry for 24 hours. I want to take some acetone again and just get some in a bowl. I want to try to put on some gloves here, but we'll see how long they last. But at this point, I'm just going to take some clean cloths and just the acetone and clean off any residue from the guitar body itself. You'll find that the paste dissolves very easily with the acetone. And take a good look while you're doing this, and you may want to touch up any areas. You may find that the paste might have been a little heavy to where you have to take, I'm taking a little X-Acto knife here and just sort of cleaning it up some. Something like a cotton swab is also really good if you've got a little bit of a groove there you need to get down into and clean out. And now you can see I'm going to cut the binding off flush with the top of the neck. It can be a little tough. You may have to sort of take it off in small bits. And you can tell here, when the neck goes on, it actually covers the ends of the binding. And I'm going to straighten out here where the paste got into that area where the neck's going to slide in. And I'm just kind of squaring that up with the neck slot.